Hello watch lovers, thank you for choosing to watch this, and today we've got an interesting discussion, mainly because I always find myself gravitating towards this particular watch type. A, it's a chronograph, and B, precious metal. Now recently, probably over the last 18 months, I've realised that I like interesting dials. I've got quite a few watches that are simpler on the dial front. Rail Master, Omega, Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Control dress watch. They don't get worn. I find myself getting bored by a dial that hasn't really got much going on. And you can't say that for these two. So we've got, on the left hand here, a Vacheron Constantin Phidias. On the right hand here, an Ebel 1911. Both solid gold, both chronographs. Both from the 90s, although the Phidias is the early 90s and the Ebel late 90s. Both have integrated bracelets, and both I think are fantastic value at the moment in the market. So let's start with the Vacheron. Why do I like this watch? 35mm might not appeal to everyone because it is a little smaller. But the way that it wears is so fantastic. I think this is actually more on the dress watch side than it is on the sporty side. I personally love a chronograph take on a dress watch. I think it's really cool. I think it's a bit like wearing a Submariner with a dinner jacket, James Bond-esque. There are no rules, by the way, these days. You can do whatever the hell you want. And I think wearing a chronograph in a dress sense is really cool. And this does that job really well, mainly because of its 9.5mm thickness. It is a watch that slips under a cuff, yet retains an element of sportiness for sure. You've got a tachymeter around the edge that hints at a kind of sporty purpose. Not really convinced that it was really designed for a sporty purpose, but it's there and it looks nice because it gives a little bit of bounce on the bezel that is quite thick. You've got quite a lot of nice polishing along the bracelet that does mean it's a bit of a scratch monster if you're wearing this regularly. But the bracelet itself is designed so well and tapers beautifully. It's a dream to wear, honestly. Popping this on is so comfortable. Inside this watch is an FPGA fully automatic movement. The beat rate is a little lower than the El Primero powered Ebel over here. But you've got a date, which I love. I had a Daytona and hated the fact there wasn't a date. So for me, having a date is great. These days, this watch is probably not the most practical if you're actually going to use it for a sporting sense, because the water resistance on these neovintage watches is not to be guaranteed. As I found out recently when I got pushed in a pool wearing another Ebel, the Miami Vice chrono with a wave bracelet, perfect. And that's now hopefully getting sorted at Ebel HQ. So don't put these near water, please. But let's talk a little bit about value for this. So the gold is obviously 18 karat and it weighs 130 grams. Now, the movement probably weighs, 20 grams or so, but it's probably fair to say that the movement's worth as much as the gold, really, with an FPGA movement. So from a pure gold value perspective, you're looking at about £7,000 worth of gold on this at today's prices. If you look on Chrono24 for these, there are some up there between £15,000 and £20,000, which is a lot of money. I bought this one not even a year ago from a dealer, £9,000. Incredible value, incredible value. You've got a top 3 maker, you've got a Ferrari-esque movement in here. FPGA was top of its game in the 80s and 90s. Obviously we know the association with Blancpain as well, of course. It was really at the cutting edge of innovation and movement, and movements generally in the market. So there's one proposition for you. Don't listen to the Chrono24 prices, they are hugely overinflated. Keep your eyes out for auctions for these Phidiases. They are not everyone's cup of tea. They are smaller than the kind of current trend, although obviously that trend is moving smaller anyway. But the integrated bracelet, the design, the mix between sporty and elegant, and the value you can get if you look carefully, I think makes this a really interesting proposition. Okay, so let's move on to the Ebel now. And the Ebel is quite new to me. I actually flew over to Hanover in order to pick this up in Germany. And I was really, really nervous because I'd seen some photos. Generally Ebels, what I found, and I've got a few of them, I found they tend to be owned by older people who are trying to just sell the collections now. They bought them in the 80s and 90s when Ebel was really, really popular. Since about the late 90s, which is when this one's from, it's the very last of the 1911s, powered by the opera movement. Ebel has not really been a manufacturer that collectors are really interested in. So you want an Ebel from the 80s and 90s. And I've found that they're generally in really good condition. They're not often worn very much. They're tucked away in a safe. And this one was pristine. It had just come back from a full service at Ebel HQ in Switzerland. It's lovely with the black dial, which is fairly unusual. Usually they come with a white dial or a silvery dial. Now, these are known for being incredible value in the market at the moment, and it is a hefty piece, this. I put this on scales, 175 grams. Now, that's a lot of gold. That's more like 8,500 pounds worth of gold here. And you really feel it when you put it on the wrist. It's a much heavier proposition than the Vacheron. It's a bigger watch for sure. You're looking at now a 39mm case, a depth that's more like 13, 14mm than the 9.5 of the Vacheron. You're moving into sport watch territory now, but not dissimilar to the Vacheron. Although this has been through a full service and it's got some kind of guarantee of waterproofing, water resistance, that's what I'm looking for, I wouldn't put it in the water. So you're again stuck with a watch that looks sporty, feels sporty, but you can't really be sporty in it. So it's more one to wear with a polo shirt on holiday than it is to jump in the pool with your baby and play around. So what are my immediate thoughts? I love the heft of this. You can't move past the value proposition here. I paid £8,500 for this. Just on a pure gold value, it's almost, I could almost just sell it for scrap and I'd get my money back. That for me is interesting because I feel like as a value proposition where I want to put my money now and I know it's safe, this has got a lot to be said for it. I know Ebel as a brand isn't everyone's cup of tea, but because you just get so much for your money, El Primero movement, 36,000 VPH, you've then got the gold element, you've got the fact that the dial is slightly rarer here. You've also got the fact this is on the bracelet, the link bracelet, which is hard to find. I actually wanted a link bracelet for my perpetual calendar Ebel, and Ebel quoted me £9,000 just for the bracelet. And I can believe it. The bracelet is probably 100 grams worth of gold, but they are getting quite hard to find. So just be wary of that when you're looking for one. If the bracelet looks stretched and rattly, it's going to be difficult to find a replacement. It's going to be very expensive. And repinning of these bracelets, I've not seen anyone be able to do it, although I'm not saying they can't. Just be mindful of that. Also, you'll notice that Ebels come with a brushed case. This is completely normal, and a polished bezel chapter ring. So when you first look at it, you think, oh, okay, this looks like it needs a bit of a polish. It's completely intended to be brushed as a finish. And then the bracelet carries that design through where you have brushing on the outside and then the polished center links in the middle. So the big question, when I'm holding these two in my hands, what am I thinking? I'm certainly thinking that they're different. For roughly the same amount of how much they're worth, how much I paid. I paid 8.5 for this one, remember, the Ebel, and I paid 9,000 for the Vacheron. Where's my money going? I think I would take the Vacheron, you know? It's so different to other watches these days. I think the slimness, both have that integrated bracelet, but the way that Vacheron does this is so delicate and beautiful. think the Ebel is probably a safer bet from a wearability perspective. This will not really date itself because it's slightly bigger and it's timeless in the sense that it's a chronograph with a layout very similar to the Daytona. But the Vacheron is more interesting. It's definitely a watch that if I saw someone wearing, I'd want to go and talk to that person. Both great watches, both fantastic value in the market right now.